Yo, what's up? Welcome to my Theorycrafting video where I'm going to be talking about a backline DPS Mage build for Siege Wars and open world PvP in New World. The role of this build is to be a magic damage dealing build, sitting in the backline casting, basically trying to do as much damage as possible in AoEs to the enemy group. For the stats, our main stat is going to be Intelligence, since this is the stat that's going to increase our magic damage. For a secondary stat, we would go Constitution, so we are not entirely squishy and helps us survive longer. So let's talk about the weapons really quick. Our first weapon is going to be a Fire Staff. This weapon provides us with AoE damage, damage over time in the form of burning, and some mobility. The second weapon is going to be Ice Gauntlet, giving us some more damage, mana regen, some CC, and also a cleanse. Let's start by going over Fire Staff. The skills I've chosen are Meteor Shower, Fireball, and Burnout. Meteor Shower is a channeling spell that drops meteors at the target location, dealing 20% weapon damage each hit. We take all of its passives. Meteor hits give 1% mana back per hit. Whilst casting, you are unstoppable, meaning that you can't be interrupted. And during the cast, you summon 25 more meteors, which is 8 more. Fireball, I think, is a longer casting spell where you fire off a large fireball. It deals 200% weapon damage and leaves a 3 meters radius burning field that lasts for 6 seconds. We take both of its passives. The fireball's burning field lasts up to 9 seconds, and direct hits with the fireball restore 10% of your max mana and also reduce Fire Staff's cooldowns by 7%. And lastly, we have Burnout. Dash forward, leaving a firewall behind you. I think the firewall that gets left behind lasts for 13 seconds. Enemies that stand in it are damaged for 5% of your weapon damage for each second that they actually stand in it. I would like to point out that the only reason that we take Burnout is because it's our only mobility skill. It always helps to have a mobility skill if you can move around faster or reposition. I'm now going to go over the passives that I've chosen. So whilst holding a Fire Staff and you are below 50% max HP, your damage is increased by 20%. Whenever Burn deals damage, gain 30% Fortify for 2 seconds. Light attacks cause enemy to catch fire, dealing 3% weapon damage each second for 6 seconds. So you can kind of see the synergy that I have here. So light attacks apply Burn, which would give you Fortify. Heavy attacks restore 5% of your max mana on hit. Heavy attacks also reduce the cooldown of Fire Staff skills by 10%. When you are above 50% mana, you gain 10% Empower, so that's a damage buff. When you get a critical hit with the Fire Staff called Burning, dealing 3% weapon damage each second for 6 seconds. So again, this is another burning. So every time you crit, you're going to cause burning, which means that you have more uptime on Fortify. If you haven't taken damage in the last 3 seconds, you deal 10% more damage. I picked this because when you're in the backline, you should be positioning yourself carefully. So that you are not really getting hit. So you should have a fairly decent uptime of this. And even if you do get hit, it's only 3 seconds downtime of your 10% damage buff. Your abilities gain extra 15% chance to critically strike, which synergizes more with the critically hit to cause burning here, which is even higher uptime of Fortify. Heavy attacks no longer consume mana. This is great because it has synergies with restoring max mana. So whenever you heavy attack and you land the hit, you will always gain mana and never lose mana. And the last passive we have here, so whilst you're holding a Fire Staff, your critical strike damage is increased by 35%. Now I'm going to go over an option quickly. We only really have one option available to use with this weapon, and that is to swap our Fireball skill for Pillar of Fire. Pillar of Fire has a lower cooldown, it costs less mana, and it gives us 10% max mana back for each enemy hit with it, with the passive here. But I'm going to explain why we actually take Fireball. And that is 1, it is a higher damage skill. So when we use it on someone in the front line that's being hard CC'd by our front line, that's a lot of damage. And 2, the burning field that Fireball leaves behind does more than you might think. When there's a field on the ground, to the enemy is seeing something that they want to avoid. And essentially what you are doing is that you are zoning enemy players, which is what we want in a Siege War and open world PvP. I hope that makes sense. So let's move to our second weapon here, the Ice Gauntlet. The skills I have chosen are Wind Chill, Ice Spikes, and Entombed. Wind Chill has been reworked in the June Part 2 update. So we'll quickly just go over that here. The first 5 meters will do a pushback, and the last 2 meters got a 20% damage buff, and also the last 2 meters won't do a pushback. So the first 5 meters of the skill will do a pushback, and then the last 2 meters of the skill has a 20% damage buff in this patch. I believe that they did this so that the skill is a bit more effective. The pushback will like push people back into the damaging field rather than pushing them completely out of the skill. For the passives, we have Enduring Chill, which will increase the duration of the skill. And the last passive has also been replaced with Chilling Blast, which increases the damage of the last 2 meters of the skill by 25%. The skill no longer causes rend, as rend has been removed from the Shatter skill. Ice Spikes summons a trail of spikes that start from you and go out in a straight line in front of you with a big spike at the end. You can cancel the skill early to get the big spike sooner along the path. The big spike also does a pushback. We have all of its passives. If the big spike hits, it decreases the cooldown of the skill by 10%. The big spike does 20% more damage to targets below 30% HP. The smaller spikes get 10% more damage and cause a stagger to enemies. And also from the big spike, smaller shards of ice will fire from the side of it. They will have a 6 meter range and do 75% damage of the big spike's damage. Lastly, we have Entombed. Much like the support build, we will take this skill to take pressure off of ourselves. Entomb yourself in ice and become invulnerable, greatly increasing your mana regeneration. It will last up to 10 seconds and it can still be destroyed by enemies. You can cancel the skill early or choose to detonate it, causing a damaging knockback at the cost of 20 mana. I'll now go over the passives really quickly. So, regain 3 mana for each cast spell whilst in the frosted area, and increases damage by 10% in the frosted area. I'm hoping that these two skills work in group members' frost areas. So the support build has Icy Pylon and Ice Shower, so I'm hoping that we can walk into a friendly Ice Pylon and get the bonus of these. If it doesn't work, then, well, we still have to take these skills to get to Entombed anyway. Recover 5 mana after triggering a critical hit on a target. Increases critical damage of ice spells by 15% when at full stamina. Hit with 3 consecutive light attacks to grant yourself 15 mana. Increases the critical chance of hitting an enemy in a frosted area or with frostbite by 20%. Heavy attacks will freeze the target in Ice Storm or with frostbite for 1 second. I do have an option here. If it turns out that this passive, Heavy Freeze, isn't really getting much value due to it being inconsistent, then I would opt out to take Defiant Freeze here to give yourself a 20% fortify for 2 seconds after casting an ice ability. So that's really it for the build. We're mainly using Fire Staff for the big AoE damage at decent range, applying burns and a dash to reposition, and the Ice Gauntlet for when enemies get a bit too close to us, we can push them back, stagger them, and deal high damage still, and we also have Entomb to take pressure off and regenerate mana. I'm hoping that this build will tie in well with the support build, as the support build has the other 2 Ice Gauntlet abilities, being Ice Pylon and Ice Shower. So we have the benefits of all 5 skills we want. I currently really don't like Ice Storm because it's very obnoxious and cluttery on the screen. It blocks a lot of vision for us. So that does it for this video, guys. Thanks again to New World fans for providing this build editor so that I may do this. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you around. Bye.